Yeah, hello, my name is Guy Strandberg from Strathcona, Minnesota. I'm 66 years old, and I was in the United States Navy from 1975 to 1981. When I went into service, my girlfriend, who eventually became my wife, graduated high school, and that next following morning, I flew out of Fargo down to San Diego. I remember so clearly flying down into San Diego at night, seeing the ocean on one side and all the lights on the other side. And plane landed, and I thought to myself, Guy, what in the world did you get yourself into? Got in the airport, got on the bus, went to boot camp, settled in for the night. I don't know what time it was certainly middle of the night or whatever. And that first morning, here comes these guys rolling the garbage can right down the barracks floor, waking everybody up. And it was just kind of that shocking experience of like, whoa, did I get it over my head or what? But it didn't take too long for me to understand in boot camp that the main, in my mind, for my experience, the main lesson in boot camp was learn just how to take orders without asking any stupid questions. If they told you to jump, you just jump. If they told you to stand, you just stand. If they told you not to walk on the grass, don't walk on the grass. And as long as you followed those orders and didn't ask any questions, life went good. If you went to buck some of those things or whatever, life got bad pretty quickly. So anyway, I finished boot camp. Oh, there's always the rumor in boot camp that they're going to have to cut boot camp short because there's too many guys coming in. Well, that's just a vicious rumor, I think, to kind of keep people's minds busy. But when I finished boot camp, went to machinist mate, call it A school in Great Lakes, Illinois, just north of Chicago, where I learned to be a machinist mate, basically just mechanical systems on different things. And then from there, I started going into my nuclear power training because my initial enlistment was for 6 years because I decided to want to be a nuclear power. Went back out to California, spent 6 months out in Vallejo, California, near San Francisco. And we had about 300 guys in our class. And the first day of the classroom, we're sitting in this big auditorium. Guy's up on the stage, and he says, take a look at the sailor to your left, take a look at the sailor to your right. Because 1 out of 3 of you guys are going to fail. You're not going to make it through the nuclear power program. And that was just kind of a little bit of a wake-up call, a little shock to me, but I did completed well. After I finished my first 6 months of nuclear power training out in California, came back home to Minnesota, married my sweetheart from high school, took her off out to Idaho Falls, Idaho to continue my nuclear power training out in the mountain prairie of Idaho.
Guy, can I take you back to, sorry to interrupt you, but take you back to Great Lakes? How long were you there?
Sure. Great Lakes, I think I was only there about 3 months. It was not a very, very long school at all. Enjoyed that. The first couple of weeks, I mean, the military schools, at least back then, started out so extremely basic. I mean, your first couple of days just learning how to identify screwdrivers and pliers and wrenches and nuts and bolts. So that was pretty simple. But as you got into things, things kind of progressed kind of quickly on learning. I say machinist made systems, which is basically steam systems, pumps, valves, turbines.
So when you got done,
systems.
When you got done there, did you have a parade or anything, or?
Did I have a parade?
Yeah, did they have a graduation thing, or?
Not so much at Great Lake Boot Camp. They had the parades and stuff, for that, and you kind of learn how to march and the formations and basically again just take orders, but not at the A school. We did pretty much got done and they shipped you on out.
Okay, all right. Sorry to interrupt you there.
No problem.
Now back to Idaho.
Back to Idaho.
We're at in Idaho?
Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Okay.
Which is kind of in the central southern part of Idaho.
So you're kind of landlocked, right?
And that was, it is. but the Navy has a facility out there, believe it or not.
Okay.
And all they do at that facility is train nuclear power trainees. Probably about 50 miles north of Idaho Falls, Idaho, there's a nuclear testing training facility, nuclear power plant testing training facility, to where they would actually have operating nuclear reactor plants with simulated engine rooms off of an aircraft carrier, or engine rooms off of a nuke destroyer, or engine rooms off of a nuclear submarine. So it's like you took a chunk out of the boat, put it out there in the middle of the Idaho desert, and I say it was a good location for that because there's not a whole lot of people out there, so it was pretty barren area. And as a nuclear powered trainee, we were not allowed to drive from town to the training site, so we were required to take buses. And the work schedule was pretty brutal. We had like a 12 hours on, 12 hour off thing. And so the bus ride was an hour and a half out there and an hour and a half back. So basically from the time you left the house until the time you got back was about a 15-hour day.
Oh, wow.
So it was physically just pretty challenging. It really was. And academically was very challenging also. I'm pretty well convinced that part of the nuclear power training program was they threw so much stuff at you so quickly that if you weren't able to learn, if you weren't able to pick up the information and retain it and work with it, you would drop out. So it was kind of an extra way of putting stress on the students to weed out the people that couldn't handle the stress. And completed that, did well on that. And I got my orders to go out to a submarine.
How long were you there?
South Carolina.
How long were you in Idaho?
I was in Idaho Falls for 6 months.
6 months. Okay.
6 months, Idaho Falls. Yep.
Keep talking there. Go ahead and
pretty exciting place to spend 6 months.
Keep talking, guy. I've got a couple cameras got unplugged. I'm losing a little bandwidth here. Okay. Just keep on going. Okay.
Okay. So completed my 6 month nuclear power training out in Idaho Falls, Idaho. And then from there, I got my orders to the submarine in Charleston, South Carolina. Submarine I was ordered to or transferred to is USS James Madison, SSBN 627. And in the U.S. Navy submarine fleet, there's two types of submarines. One is called a fast attack, which is more of a submarine with missiles and specialized torpedoes, and the type of submarines that would go with the Navy fleets as they would go around the world. And the other class of submarines is commonly referred to as a boomer. And what a boomer submarine has, we have long-range intercontinental ballistic nuclear missiles. So it's basically a movable underwater nuclear missile launching pad. And our mission was to go on patrol, and pretty much just hide. We would not go with any other ships. We would not go with the fleet. We would just go out there and hide. And the intent of our mission, of our service, was to deter any enemy from launching a first strike attack on the United States. Because all our enemies knew that the U.S. Navy had these boomer-style submarines, and if they didn't know where they were, they knew that if they launched an initial attack, all the boomer would have to do is push a couple buttons and do a counterattack back on whoever was attacking us. So it was kind of a deterrent to prevent initial attack from any of our enemies. Going out to sea, it was a challenge. We went out, we would be underwater. Well, let me back up here. First, we would go out and get to the submarine. We'd have about a month of getting the submarine ready to go out to sea. and then we would go out to sea and stay underwater for about 75 days at a time.
I missed this
So
part. What was your home port, guy?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Charleston, okay.
Yeah, home port was Charleston, South Carolina. But the first couple of patrols, the submarine was actually ported out of Holy Loch, Scotland. And the crew would fly over to Scotland, meet the boat. The crew that was on the boat would fly back home, and it was like one boat with two separate crews. And in order to keep the boat out to sea as often as or as long as possible, we'd kind of swap the crews around. So when we would go over, and like I say, spend about a month going through, loading food, loading stores, doing whatever maintenance was necessary to get the boat ready to go to sea. We'd launch out to sea, go underwater for about 35 days, and once we went underwater, we stayed underwater. And our wives, girlfriends, families, when we were out at sea, heard nothing from us for 75 days. We maintained complete silence. We were, like I say, our mission was just to hide, and to hide very well, and we did. During that time, the sailors on the submarine could receive from their families 5 telegrams, each telegram not to exceed 18 words over that 2.5 month time you were underwater.
Oh wow!
So if your wife wanted to say "I love you," she could say it 6 times, but that's all she could send in one telegram.
Okay.
And the captain certainly had the authority to hold back any information that may have been, in his mind, detrimental or harmful to the performance or the operation that the sailor had to do. Like for myself, during one of my patrols, I had a grandmother that passed away while I was out at sea, and the telegram came in and said, Grandma passed away. The captain just didn't let me know that information. So because in his mind, it may have affected my performance or my ability to do my job while we were underwater, and so I found out she had died a month after when I came back home. So it was just a little different lifestyle, or not a little, very different lifestyle. I was trained on a submarine. I was an engine room supervisor, which basically we maintained all the mechanical systems on the nuclear power plant. We provided the propulsion to push the boat. We provided all the electrical energy to power the boat. We also provided all the fresh water for cooking, drinking, whatever we needed on the boat. Provided all the air conditioning that the boat may have needed, and a few other little auxiliary things that we did. But very different world. When you go underwater for 2.5 months at a time, when you come out, your skin is as white as a newborn baby. It's just because there's no sunshine,
right?
No fresh fruit, no fresh vegetables. Everything is canned or frozen. Although the cooks did a great job with what they had to work with, you're still kind of limited what you can work with.
So, Guy, you're working with the nuclear part. How much maintenance goes into this, to a nuclear reactor or whatever you use? I mean, there's some certain things you got to watch that are performing.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. The Navy, and I'm sure all the other services, are very, very proactive on their preventive maintenance programs. So during that 1 month time when we were getting ready to go to sea, there were often a lot of parts that would be changed and replaced, just because it's been 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, or whatever, and it's just change it out rather than risk letting it fatigue. While we were underway, hundreds of things to monitor: temperatures, pressures, vibrations, chemistries. You're just continuously taking the heartbeat and the pulse of that equipment and just continuously monitoring it. And
okay. And how many of you guys are doing this? How many shifts?
Well, there was about 150 guys on the submarine. in our nuclear trained department, we probably had 25. And we would operate 3 shifts. It would be 8 hours on, 6 hours on, 12 hours off, which doesn't sound too difficult until you go through it, and it's like, okay, 6 hours on, 12 hours off. So if I'm on from like 6 in the morning to noon, and now I'm off from noon to midnight, and that's when you do your sleeping and your eating and whatever, extra training, continuously training. And now at midnight, now I got to go back on again from midnight to 6 in the morning. And it's like your body's got to get used to an 18-hour schedule instead of a 24-hour schedule.
So it was never the same.
Never the same.
Okay.
Never the same. That was physically fatiguing. If during one of your 12-hour off times you got a good night, a good 8 hours worth of sleep, and it's like, okay, now you go on for 6, now you got to go back to sleep again, and you just kind of lay there, and it's like, I can't go to sleep, type stuff. But you still got to do your shift rotations.
Okay.
Our sleeping quarters on the submarine, bunks were, I think they were like 28 inches wide and 60 inches tall, stacked 4 deep in the berthing areas. So it's like laying in an extended crib. Very, very close quarters, very tight quarters. You get to know your shipmates pretty well. There were only 2 places on the submarine where you could stand in one spot, put both arms out, and do a 360 without touching something. One of them was in our mess hall where we ate, and the other one was, there was a spot back in the engine room where we worked. But other than that, you always had stuff around you. Tons of equipment, and so the training I got, I think, was excellent training. Felt very comfortable, very confident, very capable of doing what we were asked to do. And great bunch of guys, worked with. If I could have evenings and weekends off, I'd have probably made a career out of it. But going to sea, just separation from wife and everything, just wasn't good for long term. I didn't want to do that. So that's why I left after my 6 years. So
did you know anybody while you were in there? I mean, did you go in with anybody that you knew, or while you were in there?
No, I went in. Nope, I did not do a buddy thing with anybody else. Pretty much went in on my own. And back then in the mid '70s, there was still the sting of Vietnam, going on then, and you're probably just as well aware of as I was that service people were not very well respected or thought of a lot of times, during the Vietnam era. We were warned that if you go home on leave, you maybe shouldn't wear a uniform. Just wear your civilian clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was.
So, there. Already forgot the question. I think I've lost it completely too. What do your folks think of you being in the Navy, like that, doing what you're doing?
One of the main reasons I went in the service was because of my father. My father was a career Air Force guy. And my father and I did not have a real good relationship as a teenager growing up. And I really wanted to work on improving that relationship. And one day I was just kind of praying and asking God, what should I do, type of thing. And I asked my father one time, I said, Dad, what do you think if I joined the service? And he just beamed, he just glowed. And I just kind of took that as really a confirmation from God that this is something I should do. So then we went down to Thief River Falls, or Grand Forks, or I went to town, talked to the different recruiters. Army and Air Force and Navy and everything, and the only thing that really interested me in out of all the different recruiters was the nuclear power program that the Navy offered. So I sat in the recruiter's office and filled out this little test to see if I was qualified or not. Recruiter looked at my test and said, "You're the smartest guy that's ever come in here. You can do whatever you want to do with the Navy." You know, just kind of that whole big sales pitch, right? I'm sure we all heard it when we enlisted. But yeah, so then I signed the papers and made my commitment to join the U.S. service.
Okay, and how many years did you spend on that submarine? I mean, probably.
Well, my entire time in the Navy was 6 years. The first 2 years was pretty much training, different classes, you know, that type of stuff. And then the middle 2 years, the last 4 years was all on the submarine. 2 of those years, the submarine was in operation. I did 6 patrols underwater at 75 days apiece. And then the last 2 years, our submarine was in a shipyard in Norfolk, Virginia, going through a major refit, major weapons change system, and refueling of the reactor. And when I got out of the Navy in '81, the submarine was still in the shipyards.
What was your rank when you got out?
I was a first class machinist mate at E6. Within the nuclear power program, they had a little bit of an accelerated advancement type thing. I was E3 when I got out of boot camp. And some of the time of service requirements for advancement were reduced because they were shorthanded, nuclear trained people.
Okay. In '81 you mustered out?
In '81 I got out of the Navy, yes sir.
At Charleston?
At that time the submarine was in Norfolk, Virginia, in the shipyards.
Okay.
So that's where I left the service.
Okay. What'd you do when you got out?
When I got out, I came back home to Minnesota in '81. My wife was pregnant with our first child. And before I got out, I did go on some job interviews in the nuclear power program. Had some pretty decent job offers, but my wife and I we talked about it and prayed about it, and then like, what do we really want to do and stuff, and we decided to come back to Minnesota, even though I didn't have a job in hand, and she was pregnant with her first child, but really felt in our hearts and our spirit that it was the right thing to do. So I came home. Obviously, no nuclear power plants in the Strathcona area, but another skill I did pick up was the refrigeration, air conditioning, part of the training, the cross training of the submarine. So I started my own air conditioning company for a couple of years, and did that for a little while to keep food on the table. And from there, then I went to Marvin Windows, and which kind of surprised me. When I applied at Marvin Windows in Warwood, I was just looking for a job. But on the application, I put down that I was a preventive maintenance. One of my responsibilities on the submarine was I was in charge of scheduling preventive maintenance work on a nuclear power plant. And that really caught their attention to Marvin Windows, because they needed somebody that knew and understood preventive maintenance systems for the equipment up there in Warroad. So they put me right into their maintenance department, which totally shocked me. I was expecting to put windows together. But it didn't take long until I understood that the skill set I had was something they really needed. So they had me I from scratch set up their preventive maintenance program. First on a manual paper system, and then worked with their computer people and got it set up on a computer system, and did that for a number of years. Then I from there went to Polaris as a maintenance supervisor at Polaris, and continued on my career there until I retired in Polaris 4 years ago.
Would have been nice if you could have put some kind of nuclear module in one of those Polarises.
That would have been cool. I don't know if...
Cold fusion, they call it. Cold fusion.
No, like I say, I think the training, the education I got in the Navy was excellent, and I did a lot of growing up also, which maybe I would have at that time in my life, but it certainly is. I certainly did mature a lot, felt a lot more confident. I mean, when I was going to nuclear power school out in California, I'm sitting in this classroom with a bunch of guys with 2 or 3 or 4 years of college, towards engineering degrees and such and whatever, and I'm just this simple Norwegian from Strathcona, Minnesota, kind of plugging along, and did all right. I did all right.
Sounds like it.
Felt good.
And even helped in your career after the Navy.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, very much so. The training I got in the Navy was very beneficial to me throughout the rest of my life.
Well, is there anything you'd have wished you'd have done different while you're in the Navy? It isn't like you're on a submarine, you don't go into a bunch of ports where you can go sightseeing or doing anything like that, right?
No, not at all. You leave port, you go underwater, you stay underwater for 2.5 months, you pretty much come back to the same port. So, people may ask, well, where'd you go? Like, doesn't matter. You're locked in this can, and no windows, you didn't see anything.
Do you think if you'd have been on a different submarine, you'd have had, different ports? Like my good friend from high school, he was on a submarine. They went in different ports and stuff.
That's quite possible. Yeah, that's quite possible. He was probably on a fast attack. I said the boomer I was on, our deployment schedules were pretty much preset. So my wife knew, had a date on a calendar that expect guy to be back at the port on this day. And when I mentioned the submarine has 2 crews, so when the other crew had the submarine out at sea, the time you had off was truly time off. If you kind of looked at a 3-month chunk, the other crews got the boat. The first month you came back off of patrol, you were pretty much, you had time to yourself. All I had to do was to call into the office once a week and say, yes, I am still alive. I didn't have to stay on base. I could have came back to Minnesota, whatever, just call in. They changed that a little bit later on. And then the last 2 months of your time off, you would have to go to some types of little schools or training or refreshing or whatever. But even those were not difficult and not strenuous. So your time off was really was your time. But your time at sea was absolutely full time.
Okay.
No downtime. Just you're I wouldn't say 24/7, but it's just continuous. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there's not much you'd have changed if you'd had the opportunity. Would you have done something different?
No, I really don't think so much. I say I had a great bunch of guys to work with. Whenever I went to sea, my wife came back home to Minnesota. We did not have any children at the time. Let's say she was pregnant with our first child when I got out. Made some good relationships. Still have a couple of Navy buddies we keep in contact with and stuff. No, really no regrets. I feel very comfortable, very very proud of what I did.
Sounds like you had a great career.
I think I did. Yep. I think I did. I enjoyed it. I am wearing a T-shirt I got 2 years ago. I did not go on a Veterans Honor flight. My father-in-law did. But through his experience, I came to learn about the organization, Veterans Honor Flights. And after I retired from Polaris, in the back of my mind, I had this crazy goal. I wanted to ride bicycle across the state of Minnesota. So 2 years ago, this old fat guy rode bicycle from Iowa to Canada in 4 days. It's about a 425-mile trip. Did it in about 4 days, and raised about $5,000 for Veterans Honor Flights.
Cool. It wasn't an electric bike, was it?
No, no, sir.
I've got an electric bike.
Yeah, no. No, it was just a simple 12-speed Schwinn. Got at Walmart a few years ago, and yeah.
Well, good for you.
Rode by myself. My wife took the car ahead of me and stuff. You know, kept whatever refreshments and snacks and stuff. But pretty much a solo bike ride.
Well, thanks for doing that.
And I loved it.
Yep. Anything you want to add about your military career?
No, I think we pretty well covered it.
Okay. Well, Guy, I want to thank you for doing this interview. And
I want to thank you for setting this all up. I mean, good grief, you're the one doing all the work. This is fun.
Okay. And I want to thank you for your service, Guy.
And you too. Thank you.